My name is Ryan Campbell. I was 27 years old in September 2014 when a simple weekend camping trip turned into the longest, most terrifying night of my life. No ghosts, no monsters. Just gravity, darkness, and the terrifying realization that your own body can betray you. We left Cincinnati early that Friday afternoon. Jake was driving his old Jeep, the one that rattled every time it went over 50. Sarah sat up front controlling the music. Mike and I were in the back arguing about which trail had the best views in Red River Gorge. We chose Grayson Arch Trail, famous cliffs, sandstone arches, dense forests, rugged, beautiful, wild, exactly what we wanted. As we drove deeper into Kentucky, the air changed, cooler, cleaner. The mountains rolled out in layers of red and gold under the early fall sky. When we finally parked at the trailhead, it felt like we had stepped into another world. "This is going to be the best weekend ever," Sarah said, smiling at the view. And at that moment, I believed it. We hiked about a mile in and found a clearing near the edge of a cliff. It wasn't straight down, but it was steep, maybe 60 feet before it sloped into rocks and bushes below, close enough to make your stomach tighten if you looked too long. Mike dropped his pack. Perfect spot. We set up camp. My old faded green tent went closest to the edge, mostly for the view. The ground was uneven, roots twisting under the soil. The air smelled like pine and damp earth. By sunset, we had a fire going. The flames cracked, beers cracked open. Hot dogs hissed over the fire. 2 epic adventures. Jake toasted. We clinked cans, somewhere between laughter and stories. I mentioned something casually, something that would later matter more than anything. "I sleepwalk sometimes," I said. "Since I was a kid, happens maybe once a month." Sarah looked at me. "Out here? That's not funny." "I'll zip the tent," I shrugged. "I just wander around usually. No big deal." Mike laughed. We all laughed. It didn't feel possible. The ground was cold beneath me, but I was tired enough not to care. The forest hummed softly, wind in leaves, an owl somewhere far off. I don't remember unzipping the tent. I don't remember stepping outside. Sleepwalking doesn't feel like anything. Your mind shuts off. Your body keeps moving. The next, the ground vanished. I was falling, no warning, no time to react. Just sudden, violent weightlessness. The air rushed past me like a scream. Stars spun above me. This is how I die, I thought. Then, impact, not rock. Branches. My legs hung over open air. My legs hung over open air. Pain detonated in my skull. Something warm ran down the side of my face. Blood. My back felt like it had been stabbed with a hot blade. I tried to breathe. Panic locked my chest. The cliff towered above me. My tent barely visible against the moonlight. Below me, jagged rocks scattered like broken teeth. The bush groaned under my weight. If it gave way, I wouldn't survive the rest of the fall. "Help," I whispered. The forest swallowed the sound. My phone, my flashlight. Everything was back in the tent. I was alone, bleeding, dangling in the dark. Every tiny noise felt like a threat, leaves shifting. A distant coyote howl. Something snapping somewhere deeper in the woods. What if a bear smelled the blood? My fingers dug into branches. Bark tore into my palms. My arms began to shake. Cold crept into my bones. I wore only a thin shirt and sweatpants. My teeth chattered uncontrollably. The bush creaked again. "Don't move. Don't breathe too hard. Just hold on." Time stopped meaning anything. Minutes felt like hours. My muscles burned. My vision blurred. I prayed, not loudly, just silently bargaining with whatever was listening. "Please don't let this branch break." Around 3 a.m., Jake woke up back at camp. He stepped outside and noticed my tent flap moving in the wind. "Ryan?" No answer. He checked inside. Empty. Within seconds, Sarah and Mike were awake. Guys, he's not here. They spread out, calling my name. Then Sarah said it. The cliff. Jake ran to the edge and swept his flashlight down. The beam caught my shirt. Blood on my face. Holy hell, he's down there. Sarah called 911, her hand shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. Our friend fell off the cliff. He's stuck in a bush. He's bleeding. The operator told him to keep talking to me. Jake leaned over the edge and shouted, "Ryan, we see you." Hold on. That voice, cutting through the darkness, it was the first real thing I'd heard in hours. "I'm scared," I croaked. "You're not dying tonight," Jake yelled back. "Help's coming." Those next 3 hours were torture. Branches snapped one by one. My arms trembled uncontrollably. My head throbbed. Blood dried sticky against my skin. I kept picturing my body smashing into the rocks below. I wasn't afraid of pain anymore. I was afraid of disappearing. Finally, distant voices. Headlamps cutting through trees. Wolf County Search and Rescue. A man's voice called down, steady and calm. "Ryan, I'm Tom. We're coming to you." He rappelled down the slope with controlled precision. Mid-40s, focused, professional. "Where does it hurt?" "Everywhere." He checked my pulse, my eyes, my back. "Looks like a head wound and possible spine injury. But you're alive. That's what matters." He secured a harness around me carefully. The bush creaked again. "It's holding," he said firmly. "We've got you." The rope tightened. Slowly, inch by inch, they pulled me upward. Branches scraped my skin. Rocks slammed into my legs. Pain shot through my spine with every movement. "Stay with me," Tom kept saying. The top of the cliff felt impossibly far away. Then hands grabbed me. Strong hands, flat ground under my back. I broke down crying. Jake's face hovered above me, pale and shaken. "You scared the hell out of us." A helicopter carried me to Lexington. Doctors stitched a gash on my scalp. X-rays confirmed chipped vertebrae and a concussion. "You're extremely lucky," one doctor said. "That bush saved your life." I think about that a lot. A random bush in the dark, the difference between life and death. I started seeing a specialist for sleepwalking after that. Medication helped. I haven't camped near a cliff since. That night changed something in me. It taught me how fragile everything is. One second you're laughing around a campfire. The next, you're clinging to a branch in total darkness, realizing how badly you want to live. No monsters. No paranormal forces. Just nature, gravity, and a thin, creaking branch between me and the rocks below. And that's something I'll never forget. I was 17 years old, a junior at Oregon Episcopal School, when I signed up for the Mount Hood climb in May of 1986. It was part of our base camp program tradition, a proving ground. For weeks we trained like it was preparation for something sacred. We learned how to swing ice axes into frozen slopes until our shoulders burned. We practiced tying figure eight knots over and over until we could do it blindfolded. We strapped on crampons and marched across icy fields behind the school, pretending they were glaciers. I was terrified. But beneath the nerves was something bigger and ache to stand on that summit, 11,240 feet above the world, and say, "I did it." The night before the climb, we gathered inside the timberline. Lodge our gear lay scattered across the wooden floors, ropes coiled like sleeping snakes. "Tomorrow," he said warmly, "you conquered a mountain." We believed him. We believed him. There were 20 of us 15 students. Ralph Summers and Dees Dunyak. The cold cut through my legs immediately, sharp and merciless. The sky above us was clear. Our headlamps cast trembling beams over the snow as we moved upward in slow rhythm, roped together. Every step crunched. Every breath came out in thick white clouds. Britton Clark, my best friend, climbed just ahead of me. Her braids swung beneath her hood as she turned and grinned. "This is it, Lorca. We're actually doing it." I forced a smile back. My chest felt tight, not just from the altitude, but from anticipation. By dawn, we had passed 10,000 feet. The world below was endless white ridges and jagged rock. The air had grown thinner, harsher, and then the wind shifted. At first, it was just a push against our backs. Then it became a steady force. Then it became something angry. Snow began to whip across the slope, stinging any exposed skin. My goggles fogged, and when I wiped them with my glove, I realized I could barely feel my fingers. At around 11,000 feet, Ralph stopped us. His parka flapped violently in the wind. "We need to turn back," he shouted. "Storm's building fast." Father Tom stepped forward, snow crusted in his beard. "We're close," he argued. "Just a little further. They've worked hard for this." The wind screamed louder, as if responding. I leaned toward Britton. "Should we go back?" She hesitated. "Father Tom's done this before," she said quietly. "He knows what he's doing, right?" I wasn't sure, but we trusted him. He wasn't just our chaplain, he was our leader. So we kept climbing. That decision followed us for the rest of our lives. The blizzard didn't arrive gradually. It slammed into us. Ice pellets hit my face like thrown gravel. Visibility collapsed to almost nothing. The rope between us was the only proof anyone else was still there. "We're off course." Ralph's voice carried faintly through the chaos. "We're lost." Someone shouted back. "Dig in," Father Tom ordered. "Snow cave." The word loss echoed in my mind. We were 11,000 feet up on Mount Hood, and we were lost. We dropped our packs and began digging. The snow was heavy and wet, sticking to our gloves and sleeves. The wind tried to tear us sideways. My arms shook from exhaustion as we carved into the drift, hollowing out a cramped shelter. It took hours. Finally, 18 of us crawled inside. We were packed shoulder to shoulder, knees to chests. The cave was barely tall enough to sit in. The walls dripped icy water that slid down our necks. The air smelled like wet wool and fear. Outside, the wind howled like something alive. I couldn't stop shaking. My toes had gone numb. My fingers felt like stiff sticks attached to someone else's hands. Britton leaned against me. "You okay?" she whispered. "I'm scared," I admitted. "We'll get out," she said quickly, but her voice trembled. Father Tom knelt near the entrance. "We're safe here," he said, though he looked exhausted. "Rescuers will come. Let's pray." He began reciting familiar words, but they felt fragile against the storm's roar. Marion Horwell broke a granola bar into tiny pieces and passed them around. "Small bites," she instructed. "Make it last." It tasted like dust in my dry mouth. Hours turned into something shapeless. The cold seeped deeper, past clothing, past skin, into bone. Someone began, finger deep, wet sound that made my stomach twist. Ralph told us to go back. Molly Shula muttered from across the cave, her lips tinged blue. We should have listened. "Stop," Marion snapped. "That won't help." But the doubt hung in the air. I felt it too. A slow, spreading realization that trust had led us here. At some point, I heard my name. "Lorca," soft, almost gentle. I lifted my head. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" Britton asked. Someone called me. There was nothing beyond the entrance but swirling white. Later, I thought I saw a shape move outside, tall and dark in the storm. But when I blinked, it was gone. It wasn't ghosts. It was exhaustion, hypothermia, the mountain playing tricks on a failing brain. By the second day, time had dissolved. We had no more food, just a few shared sips of water. My legs cramped violently. My head throbbed. Father Tom's prayers grew quieter. Ralph finally made a decision. I'm going for help, he said firmly. Molly's coming with me. You can't, I protested weakly. You'll die out there. If we stay, he replied, we all die. He locked eyes with me. Stay alive. Then they crawled out into the storm. The cave felt smaller after that. We waited. I thought about my mom's lasagna, my dog sleeping at the foot of my bed, ordinary things that suddenly felt impossibly far away. On the third day, I heard shouting. Real shouting. They're here, Britton gasped. We screamed until our throats burned. Snow collapsed inward as rescuers in bright orange jackets dug frantically. Light flooded the cave. Hands pulled us out one by one. My legs buckled. My feet felt like blocks of wood. The air stabbed my lungs, but I didn't care. I was alive. 9 people weren't. Father Tom, Marion, 7 classmates. They were found frozen in the snow, faces eerily peaceful. I remember sobbing without sound, my body too weak to do it properly. At the hospital, they told me I had severe hypothermia and frostbite. 2 of my toes were blackened beyond saving. I didn't care. I was alive. The school felt hollow afterward. Memorial services, trees planted in silence, hymns that cracked in our throats. For months, I woke up hearing wind, feeling walls closing in, seeing shadows that weren't there. People ask why I kept climbing, why I eventually became a guide. Because mountains don't forgive ignorance. Because someone has to teach the next generation to listen when a guide says turn back. Mount Hood is beautiful, it's breathtaking, but it is also indifferent. It doesn't reward faith or punish doubt. It simply exists, cold, patient, waiting. The storm didn't show me ghosts. It showed me how small we are, and how quickly trust, ambition, and one wrong decision can bury everything under snow.